Morning, Midland, Texas. I got an interesting story today for you, and what I'm going to talk about is the Simpson murder suicide here in Midland, Texas, 2014. That's where a Midland K9 police officer murders his wife and kills himself allegedly, and so I believe there's a connection between that murder suicide and the premeditated capital murder attempt on my life. And I'm going to go through here and explain that to you. And I also think that there's people in Chad Simpson's family that have information that they're withholding. And so I'm going to show you why I believe that and just walk through this. There's a Facebook post that I did this morning, and it's a short read. Chad Simpson's family and the cover up. Okay. And I think just instead of just reading that, because I took every paragraph and then I made a comment out of it. Here's the print screen that I posted with it, and I took this print screen back in 2014, 2015. And this is the aunt of Chad Simpson. Now, see, interestingly, Chad and Sandra were both from my hometown of Hobbs, New Mexico. So I knew his aunt. I've known her for many, many years, Patty Trimley here. And which it was one more of the many people in Hobbs, New Mexico that I thought were my friends until somebody breaks into my home and tries to murder me. And then it gets real obvious that Patty knows something about that crime. And then all of a sudden, as I'm saying it, there looks like there's a connection back to Chad Simpson, the Midland police officer here in Midland that murdered his wife. Okay, and so here I'll just read this. Patty Trimley, you're an ignorant, judgmental, pompous man who calls himself a Christian. Masons are way above your head. Leave the tragic death of Sandra alone. You do not have your information right. Your group of unidentified people are an edited picture that you have dreamed up. The world does not revolve around Buddy's dream world. Okay, and so here, let me break this down for you real quick. I don't know where Masons come from and how that even become a part of the conversation, but I have a comment on that, and we'll get into that here a little bit. The tragic death of Sandra, which is alleged to be murdered by her nephew, Chad Simpson. Okay. And then the group of unidentified people, which she called edited pictures, was the pictures of the secret police. Well, now we know their names, okay? Remember back when Chad murdered his wife, or alleged to murder his wife, we didn't know who they were, right? And I was asking if Chad was one of the secret police. That has now been confirmed by Empire Private Investigations, okay? And so I'm going to walk through that, but obviously this vicious attack by the aunt of the alleged murderer on me, I think plays into what's going on here, and there should be some law enforcement should be asking some questions, because if you have information, like say you have information on underground bunkers that were used for oil show parties and multiple murders, etc., and you're withholding that information, then you could be charged as accessory to capital attempted murder, accessory to capital murder, etc. That is important information in the investigation of very, very serious crimes here. So I'm going to start right here on my first comment, because I just took every paragraph and I copied it and pasted it down here. On December 15, 2014, Midland K9 police officer Chad Simpson was alleged to have murdered his wife, Sandra Simpson, his young wife, and the mother of their two babies before he killed himself. And I put a link to a story on the Midland Reporter Telegram. I just clicked on that link right here. You can go to the internet and you can Google this and you can find that and you can read that story. And when it was dated, this just December 15th, 2014. There's a picture of his house, and it's telling me it happened on Crenshaw Drive, Chad Simpson. So, it's not too hard to go to the Midland County Appraisal District and look up, the ownership of that house, see who the neighbors are. I even wondered, and I made a video wondering if that home was one of the many homes, that's been rigged with hidden underground access. And if that was the case, if that was used for a double murder and to make it look like a murder suicide, and because the question has been asked if Well, let's say Chad Simpson was going to snitch on the other secret police, okay? And would that be motive for them to murder him and cover it up, And a lot of people think, yeah, it would, because, I think we're looking at very serious crimes, capital attempted murder, capital murder. These are life sentences, death penalty, etc., okay? And so, there's a news article in the background of Chad Simpson. Okay, and then the next comment. In 2018, Empire Private Investigations identified Chad as one of the secret police. That is what many people had suspected, since one of them was seen wearing a Midland K9 police jacket inside my home. Now, you remember not that I'm ambushed and shot by somebody under my home. I crawl out on my hands and knees to save my life. God saved my life. Okay. Well, later that night, these police come into my house. Okay, and they tried to disable the camera and accidentally started it. So I got these pictures. Okay. Well, at the time there were people dressed like police, but when I ordered the police report, I didn't get a police report saying any police were here. Okay, so I had pictures of people dressed like police, but no police report. We know now, 7 years later, we found out there was a police report that was being withheld illegally from us, me and my attorneys. And then it was a heavily falsified police report. 6 of the secret police identified by Empire Private Investigations in 2018, after I offered a $2,000 reward to anybody that could identify the secret police, right? Then we find out that 11 of them were, police officers, and they were sheriff deputy, Martin County Sheriff Deputy, Midland Police, etc., different agencies, different counties, like a ragtag group of criminal, corrupt police involved in covering up a premeditated capital attempted murder. And, some people have wondered if, the person under my home that shot me was actually one of these corrupt police. But what was noticed is this one was wearing a Midland K9 police jacket. Okay, and it was later identified 6 years after being caught on camera as Chad Simpson, alleged murderer Chad Simpson. Now look at the date, 1/29 at 3 o'clock in the morning. I was shot on 1/28 at 11 o'clock or whatever. So there's Chad. Okay, and so. Here's the next comment. Obviously, the murder of Sandra Simpson was connected to the capital murder done on my life. 2 days before her brutal murder, I had posted Chad's secret police picture on my Facebook, along with a story that I named Rape and Murder. Okay, and so here, these are 2 different print screens. This print screen was posted to my Facebook December 13th, 2014. You can go to my timeline and look that up today. And there's a story called Rape and Murder, and that's the story of the young girl that was murdered at the 2010 oil show party that my friend was at. Remember, she was coming here and driving to the party, and then that was within 5 minutes of my house. I'm suspecting now she drove around, parked in the Home Depot parking lot, went underground, come over here via tunnels, and went to the underground bunkers or homes or whatever, and that's where the oil show parties were at. She didn't want a prostitute. They murdered her. My friend was there, and my friend was a witness. Okay, that's the rape and murder story, in a nutshell. And I posted this picture here along with the rape and murder story. But remember, we didn't know if they were even police at the time, but they were suspected of being corrupt police, but I had no proof of it. And even, as you just read, even Patty Trimley, the aunt of this guy right here, was saying, oh, them are doctors' pictures, you're so-called, secret police, etc. And they were denying that they were even police, okay? Well, that should throw up red flags that Patty Trimley and her first cousin, Annette Peacock, know something about these underground facilities, or the murder of Chad, or the capital attempted murder of my life, etc. Okay. On the right-hand side is the obituary for Sandra Simpson. She's the young mother nurse that was murdered. She's a victim, okay? And I think me and her have a lot in common. I mean, she's murdered inside her own home like I am. And, and it's alleged that this guy did it, okay? Well, which is Chad Simpson, okay? And you can see that 2 weeks, or here we go. This is posted December 13, 2014. And on December 15th, 2 days after I posted that, is that right? Yes, 2 days after I posted that, He murders her. Okay, so some people are even asking, did Sandra see this Facebook post and recognize her husband and ask him and confront him? Okay, and then he feels confronted, so he murders her and then kills himself. We don't know that. There's still unanswered questions, but we know a lot more now than we did then. Okay, and so then. My next post is, this story is about the young girl that was murdered at the 2010 oil show party when she refused to prostitute. My friend was at that party and told me about it, but she was afraid to report it to police and said that high-level police were also there. Okay, and so I copied and pasted the story from my Facebook timeline. Okay, and there it is. And I'd even made a video that's had 20,000 more views. This is a clip of another video, rape and murder in 9 minutes. It's one of the top YouTube videos ever made, and it's basically showing that I sent this rape and murder story to former Governor Rick Perry, who just recently resigned as Secretary of Energy, and then former Attorney General Greg Abbott, who's now Texas Governor. Okay, so they got this story, this rape and murder story about the murder of a young girl at an oil show party on the day that on the murder suicide of Chad Simpson, and that's in this video right here. My next comment. I've suspected these parties were going on in the underground homes or bunkers believed to be near my home, and maybe Sheriff Gary Painter was one of those there. Remember, my friend was afraid to report the murder and said high-level police were there. Recent Sheriff Candidate Joe Lozano, he was running for the Midland Sheriff position just a couple months ago, told me that the underground facilities here by my house was Painter's Hideout. And maybe Chad was there too, Chad Simpson, alleged murderer. Okay, so I have a video called Sheriff Painter's Hideout, and I secretly recorded Joe Lozano telling me that. Now remember, it's real possible that he could be our sheriff right now. Actually, it was Kreiner that won, and I recently sent that video to Kreiner and the criminal investigation team for the sheriff department, of Joe Lozano telling me that was Painter's Hideout, the underground facilities, and the underground facilities is believed to be where the young girl was murdered at the oil show party, and you can see how that connects back up to Chad Simpson and the murder-suicide or the murder of Sandra Simpson. Okay. Next comments, maybe Sandra would be alive today if Chad had been arrested for his involvement in the home invasion murder attempt on my life. The ones who have been obstructing justice have her innocent blood on their hands. There's been so much obstruction of justice here. It's ridiculous is what it is, because there's so much evidence. And what I did, I have a print screen of a message I sent to our former mayor, Jerry Morales. Okay, and this is dated October 29th, 5 weeks before she was murdered in her home. Okay, and I asked Mayor Morales, can you confirm if any of these people were Midland police officers? And I sent him a pictures of the secret police. Okay, and one of them, look at there, is Chad Simpson wearing a Midland K9 Police jacket that went on, alleged to go on to murder her. Well, they ignored my question right here. But now we're asking, well, what if Mayor Morales would have asked his police department to investigate that? They arrested him. Would she be alive? Doesn't that make sense? Was there obstruction of justice? Did they neglect their duty and that was a factor in the murder of Sandra Simpson? I think somebody should be asking these questions. But I sent that to not only the mayor, but the city council too. Some of them are still our city council right now. Chad and Sandra Simpson are from Hobbs, New Mexico, which is where I was born and raised. I know his Aunt Patty Trimley, and I was also talking to her first cousin and his other aunt, Annette Elliott Peacock. Okay, so Annette and Patty are first cousins, and they're both aunts of Chad. And Chad is alleged to have murdered Sandra. Okay, I have screenshots of some of our conversations, and I suspected they both have information on the murder attempt on my life and/or the murder-suicide, which they've been hiding. Maybe they know about the underground homes and parties here. Maybe they know Chad was there. I don't know, but somebody should be asking them. Annette rudely tried to say the secret police were not even cops. She had told me, you can effing rent uniforms. That's how serial killers abduct so many. Okay, and that was back, this is back before they were identified by the private investigator. and I got the police report. And Patty was just as rude. She posted that message I showed you on her Facebook, talk about Buddy's dream world. And the slander and lies that have been told, such as Patty did, was used to cover up the premeditated capital attempt to murder my life. Now we have triple proof showing I would shot with my gun. We know somebody tried to murder me in my home. We now know who the secret police are, right? I had to pay to get them identified. And this is print screens of what I sent and a conversation between myself and that aunt Annette Peacock. Okay, and here it says, I was fixing to post this under my last post, but you replied, what do you think? And AP is Annette Peacock. You realize that attacking Chad is cruel and childish. You are doing this because he can't fight back hurting people. I can't imagine what you've been through, but you have let the paranoia take and the need for attention cloud everything. Okay, so there's more lies and slander to cover up premeditated capital murder attempt in my life and attack of a crippled crime victim, me, okay, by Annette. And I'm kind and nice, my sincere condolences for your family and etc. Okay. And she's just hateful and rude. And Annette says, no, I know he murdered his wife and left his precious baby orphans. So she knows for a fact Chad is a murderer, her nephew. Okay. And then she goes on to say, you didn't fucking rent uniforms. That's how serial killers have done so many. You need sued for slander. Okay. Well, here she's talking about the secret police and trying to say the secret police were not cops, that they were criminals dressed like police and they rented it, etc. Okay, this is the aunt of Chad Simpson telling me this. Okay, this is a print screen, and I just wrote back. I said, you can sue CBS 7, the chief of police. They're the ones that said it's posted all over the news that Chad Simpson murdered Sandra. And I go on and I'm like, she's saying Chad wasn't there. Her nephew was not in my house. Okay. And I said, you can help clear Chad's name. All you have to do is contact the Midland Police Department and demand they identify the secret police, right? And Annette Mobley says, you call Nancy Grace, I'm not going to help you. Well, I mean, imagine this, this evil person here, that's all there is to it. Other people even suggested that the murder-suicide was really a double murder to cover up the underground homes and crimes. What if Chad was going to snitch on the other secret police? Would that be motive for murder? Now, that's hypothetical, and we need law enforcement to look at that. But I have a video called Simpson Murder-Suicide Home Investigation Crenshaw. And I looked at who his neighbors were, etc. One thing Patty Trimley told me when I was talking to her on the phone is that the Texas Rangers, that he had left his camera on in his police car, so they knew nobody had entered that house. Okay, so thus it had to be Chad that murdered Sandra. But there's a couple things. One, I've proved that my cameras are hacked here, but the other thing is homes all over Midland, Odessa have reported people in the attic. Okay, besides me, and I was shot. And I believe this happens because they're tunneling under homes is what's happening. This is why I asked the question, what if Chad's home was one of them many rigged homes with underground access? And so that's why I'm looking at the neighbors going, would this neighbor have, access to a tunnel access to the Crenshaw house, and or that was what was used so nobody would be seen going in the door, right? So they could make that look like a murder-suicide, cover up the double murder. As I said earlier, would it be motive for murder if Chad, because a lot of people said he was a good guy, if he was going to testify or snitch on the other secret police, and they're caught in capital crimes, okay? And here's my next post. Interestingly, Chad was the second secret police to die because Midland Sheriff Deputy Mike Naylor died 2 months before him. Neither of their names were on the long withheld police report. And here's the obituaries right here. 2 secret police and a policeman's wife are now dead with connections to the crimes here, which is the capital attempt to murder my life and the other suspected multiple murders. There's Chad Simpson's obituary, okay? And remember now, he's alleged to be the murderer of Sandra Simpson, okay? And leaving 2 babies as orphans, whatever. And here's Naylor. He dies 2 months before Simpson did. And we found out, the private investigator identified him as the second person that arrived at my house following John Woodward, who was a sheriff from a different county. Nobody's ever explained why a Martin County sheriff was the first person seen at my house after I survived a premeditated murder attempt, and he was followed by this Mike Naylor into my house, and neither of Naylor or Simpson's names on the police report. I just did a Facebook post yesterday. They got quite a few wows, and then that's that 6 police officers identified by Empire Private Investigations names are not on the long withheld police report. 6 of them. 3 of them are now dead, and one of them is Simpson, another one's Naylor, and then another one's Gilliam. I heard that he moved off, got a sheriff's job, and died, had a heart problem supposedly, and he's dead. So 3 of the secret police or 3 out of the 6 secret police that are names were identified and not on the police report are now dead. Okay, and then Sandra Simpson, like I said, she's just the innocent victim as far as I'm concerned. And that either way, she was murdered in her house. She's like me. She's home minding her own business. They come to her home and killed her, And so let's go to the next one. I thought it was interesting that Patty Trimley said Masons are way above your head. Remember that in the beginning? She said that on that Facebook post. Ain't that weird? I wonder why Masons keep coming up in conversation, as I've had no evidence showing they were involved in the underground bunkers of the multiple murders believed to be committed here. But local businessman Aaron Packelhofer asked me if I knew the names of the 4 people that have been murdered, died in my home on a Facebook post, and his friend Lisa Friss said something about him taking me to a Masons meeting when I hadn't said anything about them or even knew he was connected with Masons. Okay, and I'm going to show you this before I finish reading that. This is print screen of the Aaron Packelhofer conversation, And he says, buddy, I watched your video and parts of a few others. There's some serious accusations you made. Have you located, entered the tunnel? Okay. And that evidence has been turned over to law enforcement. We're waiting on them because the murder attempt's already proven, right? And multiple people said tunnels are here. Proof somebody under my home shot me, etc. Okay. And Packelhofer says, I wish you luck in life. I won't involve myself. I am well aware of the many corruption accusations against the Midland Police Department. I'm not so sure it is a secret police scenario as much as it is pure criminal activity by the police. But if I can ask, there were 4 people who were murdered, died in your house. What are their names? Okay. And then notice he put a question mark at the end of that. And a lot of people, they pointed that out. Oh, he was asking a question, and I'm going, no, he was making a statement. He didn't say there were 3 people. He didn't say there were 8 people. He said there were 4. He knew exactly how many people had been murdered, died in my house. And he was asking their names. If I knew their names, obviously he knows their names. Okay. And so we go on, but Lisa Frisk, his friend here, is writing it, says, Aaron, she writes to him, buddy, invite Buddy to one of your Mason meetings. Perhaps someone in the group would find his story interesting. Perhaps got him. And Buddy has always wanted to communicate with the Masonry group. No, I haven't. I don't even know Lisa Frisk, I mean, that was the weirdest thing to say right there. But she's bringing up Masons as in Masons know something about, these underground facilities, the multiple murders, the pedophile parties, etc., And so maybe there's a lead there, that needs to be followed. The woman that recorded on the phone who told me there were 4 3-bedroom underground homes here that cost over $1 million each and that said they were having pizza or pedophile parties also mentioned Freemasons. And that's in the video called $1 Million Underground Facilities. I'll put a link to it when I post this. And it's well known that the late Sheriff Gary Painter was a 33 level Mason, which is interesting since recent Sheriff Candidate Joe Lozano was recorded as saying the underground bunkers was Sheriff Painter's hideout. And I have a video on that called Painter's Hideout. Okay. And that was a recording on there, as I mentioned earlier. And so I thought you might find this interesting, and a lot of the reasons I post these and pull up these print screens and evidence is so law enforcement can help them with their investigation in these multiple murders here. Because I'm sitting here looking at it and I'm thinking maybe this murder suicide wasn't exactly what it was, and maybe there's information on it, and I'm really thinking that his aunts, Patty Trimley and Annette Peacock, have some information that maybe the law enforcement needs to know to solve these multiple murders. Buddy Webb, Midland, Texas.